Released in 2009, MotorStorm Arctic Edge brought the adrenaline-fueled chaos of the MotorStorm series to the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation Portable. Developed by Bigbig Studios rather than the franchise's usual developer, Evolution Studios, the game was a technical and creative triumph that adapted the core MotorStorm formula for handheld and older hardware without losing its distinctive identity. Arctic Edge's development was a bold attempt to translate the chaotic, high-energy MotorStorm experience to the PSP and PS2. Bigbig Studios, known for their work on Pursuit Force, took on the challenge of adapting a series built on the technical prowess of the PlayStation 3 to significantly less powerful hardware. Instead of trying to replicate the graphical and physics-intensive gameplay of its predecessors, the team focused on preserving the franchise's core identity: chaotic racing, diverse vehicles, and dynamic environments. The choice of an Arctic team was both practical and creative. Snowy landscapes and frozen terrains introduced new gameplay mechanics like avalanches triggered by loud crashes, and fragile ice bridges that could collapse under heavy vehicles. These hazards added a strategic depth to the races while making the game visually distinct from earlier entries. The snowy setting also allowed for creative optimization. Dynamic snow effects and icy textures provided a sense of immersion without overwhelming the less powerful hardware. Bigbig Studios excelled at optimizing the game for the PSP, leveraging the handheld's capabilities to create a sense of speed and intensity. While the game occasionally experiences framerate drops, it runs remarkably well overall, especially given the chaotic nature of your average MotorStorm race. The PS2 version, while less impressive compared to contemporary hardware, delivered a solid experience for players who hadn't yet transitioned to newer consoles. By focusing on creating an entirely new entry, rather than attempting a direct port, Bigbig created a game that felt authentic to the franchise while carving out its own niche. Arctic Edge showcased the studio's ingenuity and commitment to delivering a thrilling racing experience, proving that the series could thrive even outside the confines of high-powered hardware. Visuals were a standout achievement, particularly on the PSP, where the developers pushed the handheld's capabilities to its limits. The Arctic setting brought a fresh aesthetic to the franchise, with icy tundras, snow-covered mountains, and frozen rivers creating a visually distinct experience. Bigbig Studios designed the environments with a blend of natural and industrial elements, such as snow-blanketed forests, rugged cliffside tracks, and massive machinery embedded in the icy terrain. These environments were not only visually striking, but also enhanced the sense of immersion, pulling players into the harsh yet exhilarating world of Arctic Edge. Dynamic snow and weather effects played a pivotal role in elevating the game's visual appeal. Snow kicked up behind vehicles in clouds of powder, adding a tactile sense of interaction with the environment. Tracks were designed to reflect the ongoing chaos, with tire marks cutting through snow and icy paths shimmering under sunlight. The weather effects, including flurries and blizzards, added a layer of unpredictability to races while showcasing the studio's ability to create atmospheric detail within the technical constraints of the hardware. On the PSP, the visuals were tailored to maximize clarity and impact on a smaller screen. The art team used clever texture work and lighting techniques to maintain a sense of depth and detail, despite the handheld's limitations. The sense of speed was particularly well executed, with motion blur and rapid transitions between environments helping to create the adrenaline-pumping intensity that defined the MotorStorm series. While not as graphically advanced as its PlayStation 3 counterparts, Arctic Edge captured the essence of the franchise's visuals in a way that felt authentic and satisfying. The PS2 version, while not as groundbreaking for its platform, retained much of the visual identity of the PSP version. Slightly enhanced textures and smoother performance on the aging console helped maintain the series' high standards. However, the graphical achievements of the PSP version were especially noteworthy, as they demonstrated how the developer effectively optimized the MotorStorm formula for portable gaming. Together, both versions of Arctic Edge proved that visually impressive and engaging experiences could still be delivered on less powerful hardware. Sound design played a critical role in immersing players in its icy, chaotic world. From the roar of engines to the crunch of snow on their tires, every audio element was crafted to heighten the game's visceral intensity. The developer paid close attention to environmental soundscapes, incorporating details like the howling of Arctic winds and the distant rumble of avalanches. These ambient effects not only added realism but also reinforced the tension of racing through unpredictable terrain. A standout feature was the dynamic audio mixing, which responded to the action on screen. The soundscape shifted depending on the player's perspective and environment. For instance, driving through a snow tunnel would muffle external noises while amplifying the echo of the vehicle's engine. The developers also added unique audio cues for environmental hazards, such as the sharp crack of an ice bridge under strain or the deep rumble of snow shifting before an avalanche. These auditory signals served both as immersive details and gameplay feedback, alerting players to imminent danger. The soundtrack was another highlight, once again featuring an eclectic mix of licensed tracks spanning from rock, electronic, and alternative genres. Artists like The Prodigy and Pendulum lent their high-energy music to the game, perfectly complementing its adrenaline-fueled gameplay. The music was integrated seamlessly into the experience, with tracks ramping up during critical moments like tight races or risky stunts. This dynamic pairing of gameplay and soundtrack amplified the excitement and kept players engaged throughout each each race. In addition to its music and environmental sounds, Arctic Edge excelled in the design of its vehicle audio. Each vehicle type had a distinct sound profile, from the deep rumble of big rigs to the sharp high-pitched whine of snowmobiles. These differences not only added variety, but also helped players quickly identify competitors and navigate the chaos of the track. Together, the game's sound design and audio choices elevated MotorStorm Arctic Edge into a truly immersive experience, ensuring that every race felt as intense and engaging as the last. Gameplay once again stayed true to the franchise's chaotic, arcade-style roots while introducing unique mechanics to complement its Arctic setting. Players were tasked with racing across icy terrains, snowy mountain trails, and frozen rivers while navigating the dynamic hazards and competing against aggressive AI opponents. The game retained the series' signature focus on multi-route tracks, giving players the freedom to choose paths suited to their vehicle's strengths, whether barreling down a sturdy main road in a big rig or weaving through narrow shortcuts on a snowmobile. The gameplay encouraged experimentation and adaptability. Vehicle diversity remained a cornerstone of the MotorStorm experience, with the game introducing new Arctic-specific vehicles like snowmobiles and snowplows. These new additions brought fresh dynamics to races, as snowmobiles excelled in agility and speed on icy paths, while heavier vehicles like big rigs offered durability and stability on rugged terrain. The balancing between vehicle classes was carefully tuned, requiring players to consider not only their personal preferences, but also the terrain on each track. The Arctic setting introduced environmental hazards that added unpredictability to races. Avalanches could be triggered by loud engines or crashes, temporarily blocking routes or taking out competitors, while ice bridges offered risky shortcuts that might collapse under heavy vehicles. These dynamic elements kept races exciting and unpredictable, rewarding players who could think on their feet and adapt to sudden changes. The game also featured weather effects like snowstorms and icy winds, which could impact visibility and handling, further immersing players in the harsh conditions of the Arctic. The game features 101 events in its main festival, once again divided into 8 ranks for players to battle through. Players gain either 100, 75 or 50 points if they finished first, second or third respectively. In addition, there are stars for players to collect. These are event-specific challenges on top of just winning the race, usually requiring players to beat the race within a time limit or to remain in first place for a set duration. Aside from the regular races, there are 3 other event types players will have to beat. First off, speed events, which return from Pacific Rift, in which players once again need to race through a series of gates within the time. The all-new time ticker events, in which 4 drivers continuously gain points depending on which position they are currently in, with the first one to hit 999 winning the event. And my favorite, the Invitationals, which are a series of 3 races where drivers gain points depending on which position they finished in. At the end, whoever has the most points wins the event and gets rewarded with a new car. Multiplayer options were robust for both platforms. On the PSP, the game supported ad hoc and online multiplayer, allowing up to 8 players to compete in chaotic races. The PS2 version offered split-screen multiplayer, delivering a fun local experience for console players. Both versions maintained the series' focus on social play, ensuring that the competitive and chaotic spirit of MotorStorm translated seamlessly to both platforms. Customization was another significant aspect of the gameplay. Players could personalize their vehicles with a range of skins, decals and color options, allowing them to stand out in multiplayer races or tailor their vehicle's look to their preferences. This feature added a layer of individuality and gave players a sense of ownership over their vehicles. MotorStorm Arctic Edge delivered gameplay that was fast, chaotic and endlessly engaging. The combination of diverse vehicles, dynamic hazards and strategic track design makes every race feel fresh and exciting. By staying true to the franchise's core mechanics while innovating with Arctic themed elements, they crafted a gameplay experience that felt both familiar and refreshingly unique, ensuring that Arctic Edge was a worthwhile entry in the series. Arctic Edge, just like every other entry in the franchise, doesn't focus heavily on the narrative, but it still offers a cohesive backdrop that framed the action and gave context to the chaos. Like its predecessors, the game took place in the fictional MotorStorm Festival, an underground series of extreme off-road races held in remote, exotic locations. This time, the festival moved to the treacherous and icy wilderness of Alaska, a setting that emphasized the daring and rugged nature of its participants. The premise was simple: racers from around the world gathered to test their skills, vehicles and resilience against one another in some of the harshest conditions imaginable. The festival framework creates a loose narrative structure that's more about atmosphere than plot. Racers aren't here for a story, they were here for the adrenaline, glory and bragging rights. This allows the game to focus entirely on gameplay while using the concept of the MotorStorm Festival to justify its over-the-top racing scenarios. The Arctic environment became its own character, with the rugged landscapes, industrial backdrops, and dynamic hazards serving as a constant reminder of the festival's untamed and unforgiving nature. Bigbig Studios added flavor to the festival's setting with the inclusion of brief cinematic sequences and stylistic menus. These elements reinforced the sense of being part of a high-stakes, rebellious event, with a gritty, industrial aesthetic that matched the rugged tone of the series. Character profiles for AI racers were hinted at but left intentionally vague, leaving room for players to imagine their own stories for the daredevils participating in this event. Although the story remained intentionally minimal, its simplicity worked in the game's favor. By keeping the narrative light, it ensured that the focus stayed squarely on the chaotic racing and environmental hazards that define the series. For players who wanted more context, the Arctic setting and festival framework provides just enough to create a sense of place and purpose, adding an extra layer of immersion to the high-octane experience. While the story may have been shallow, it served as a fitting backdrop for the gameplay and complemented the series' emphasis on spectacle and action over plot. Arctic Edge was met with generally positive reviews upon release, with critics praising its ability to capture the essence of the MotorStorm franchise on less powerful hardware. Both versions received commendation for their dynamic gameplay, diverse vehicles, and visually impressive presentation. The PSP version in particular stood out as a technical achievement, demonstrating the developer's skill in optimizing the MotorStorm formula for handheld gaming. Critics lauded the game's Arctic theme and the unique gameplay mechanics it introduced. The inclusion of new vehicles and hazards such as avalanches and collapsing ice bridges were frequently highlighted as innovative features that added depth to the series' already established gameplay. Reviews noted that the dynamic hazards made races feel unpredictable and exciting, a hallmark of the MotorStorm experience. The game's diverse track design, which encouraged strategic thinking and route selection based on vehicle type, was also a point of praise. The game wasn't without criticism, however. Some reviewers pointed out the occasional frame rate drops on the PSP during particularly chaotic moments, though these were often seen as minor drawbacks given the overall quality of the game. Others mentioned that while Arctic Edge delivered a faithful MotorStorm experience, it didn't push the series forward significantly in terms of innovation. PS2 version, while solid, was seen by some as less impressive given the platform's age and availability of more advanced racing games on newer consoles. And honestly, I'm inclined to agree. While I appreciate them giving the older generation and handhelds some love, I can't help but think about what Arctic Edge would have looked like on the PlayStation 3's cutting-edge hardware. In terms of its legacy, MotorStorm Arctic Edge stands out as a testament to Bigbig Studios' ability to innovate within constraints. The game proved that the MotorStorm franchise could thrive outside the high-powered confines of the PlayStation 3, delivering a portable and accessible experience without sacrificing its core identity. For PSP owners, it was considered one of the platform's best racing games, showcasing the handheld's potential for high-quality immersive titles. It also served as my introduction to the series, and shaped much of my musical taste throughout the years. Similarly, for PS2 players, it provided a satisfying send-off as the console neared the end of its lifecycle. Arctic Edge stands as a remarkable example of how a beloved franchise can be successfully adapted to less powerful hardware without losing its core identity. Bigbig embraced the limitations of the PSP and PS2, focusing on creative solutions to deliver the chaos, energy, and excitement that defines the series. The setting, hazards, and diverse vehicles all contributed to a game that felt fresh and distinctive while staying true to the franchise's roots. While the game didn't revolutionize the formula, it showcased the versatility of the series by proving it could thrive outside the realm of high-end consoles. The clever use of dynamic visuals, impactful sound design, and accessible yet thrilling gameplay made it a standout title for both platforms, particularly on the PSP, where it pushed the boundaries of what the handheld could achieve. Even with its minor technical flaws and a relatively shallow narrative, Arctic Edge remains a fan favorite, celebrated for its ingenuity and its ability to offer an authentic MotorStorm experience in a portable format. It provided a unique take on the franchise's established formula, carving out a distinct identity within the series and ensuring its place as a memorable entry in both the MotorStorm catalog and the libraries of the PSP and PS2. For fans of off-road racing games or anyone looking for a high-energy, chaotic experience, Arctic Edge is a testament to the power of creative development and remains worth revisiting today. It's a shining example of how bold design choices and a focus on gameplay can deliver unforgettable gaming experiences, even within hardware constraints. As a result, it holds its place as one of the best racing games of its time, and the underappreciated gem of the MotorStorm franchise. Hey there, thanks for watching to the end of this video. If you enjoyed, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe, as I have 290 more games to cover between now and the inevitable heat death of the universe. Follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. I've been Xeniverse, and I'm off to free Paris.